Right here in studio, Mr. Paul Stone, who's the CEO of Colonial Metals Group, and freegoldguide.com/Kudlow. How about that? freegoldguide.com/Kudlow, or just call 800-621-3908. Mr. Paul Stone. Delighted to see you, Paul. Thank you. Give me a quick word on the Trump landslide. What do you make of it?
I make of it like Braveheart. Literally like Braveheart. Literally. He reached the minds and hearts and souls of men and women. He led a charge. They threw everything at them they could. He would never call for freedom, right? Just death. He would never appease them. And he ran the gamut. And he bet on something that will never die, that will always be there underneath you. And that is the will of the people in this country to be free and to be heard and to feel connected to their leadership. And that's why he won.
You know, it's interesting on all these points that you raise. We thought there were two assassination attempts. One in the Butler Field in Pennsylvania, Butler Fairgrounds.
Right.
And the second one at his golf course at Mar-a-Lago. But it turns out, as you may be reading in the papers last night and today, Iran tried to put out a contract killing on him, assassination, gun for hire, or whatever for hire. Of course, the crooked Biden Justice Department didn't tell us until after the election, but they'll all be gone soon. Yeah. But, literally, when Trump said, I will never surrender, there really were essentially three attempts on his life. But there he was. There he went. A complete landslide, 3 houses. So I was interested. The early markets on this were very bullish. Stock market soared, as you know. We were just talking about it with my dear friend Nancy Tengler, who's one of the smartest investors I know. Gold fell quite a bit. It's like the Trump dollar may be stronger than people think. People think, well, Trump's going to be inflationary. No, he's not. Tax cuts and deregulation can never be inflationary. But it would be, you would welcome a strong dollar. That wouldn't mean, for example, people still shouldn't diversify their portfolios. I think that's what you would say. But I wouldn't be surprised to see a downward correction in gold.
Yeah, it's possible. I don't need gold and silver to do well, and I don't need it to be relevant. I believe that it is, for my career to continue, I'll change careers if there's something else hotter that I should be a part of. I'm a part of this because I think it's a solution to an eternal problem in this country, and that is that you can't stop printing money to pay the bills. The debt represents, $36 trillion in debt represents how much money our economy did not produce to cover its costs. Mostly in the last 24 years, since the baby boomers retired, the government has had to create $35 trillion out of thin air to pay the bills. Revenue gen from our economy couldn't muster enough to cover those costs. That's what it really represents, because the government isn't spending that money building ski resorts in Austria. They aren't building condos on the moon. The money is being spent here. 90-something% of it. I know there's wars and crap. They spend money outside the U.S., but so, my God, why is our economy struggling so much? You could look at the stock market going up, but there's deeper root level issues that gold and silver solves, because eventually there's Rome. Eventually there's Portugal, Spain, the Dutch, the French, the British, the reserve currency country. England had 26 countries under its belt. Now it has 3 and they can't get along. So there's a rise and fall to everything.
I would argue from an investor standpoint, they still should have a chunk of their portfolio in precious metals. We've talked about this. I think the last time you were sitting there and said, if you go back the last 25 years, gold and silver have both outperformed
the markets,
the S&P 500, the broadest index.
Yeah.
Now, you may have a stronger dollar under Mr. Trump because of his good policies, but you still should have a diverse portfolio. It just makes all the sense in the world. Historically, it makes a lot of sense.
Here's just one point, if I could. So if it just comes down to choice making, all the presidents from the year 2000 have had to create money out of thin air. It's not really the presidents; it's the bills the government sees, the Congress sees, the Federal Reserve has to help people out. So if Biden's last budget was around $7 trillion, that's what they blew through in a year, in 12 months, $7 trillion, and the new government can come in and go, oh, well, we just don't need to spend that much. We'll just spend $3 trillion. Great. But that's not possible because the costs continue to grow. The black hole that formed in our economy when the baby boomers retires continues to consume all things that it touches. And so the money printing has to happen faster. You're creating $1 trillion in new debt every 100 days. The last $1 trillion was created in around 85 days, and that pace is quickening.
Can you imagine giving Joe Biden $7 trillion to spend?
No.
That could be the scariest thought yet.
He'd buy a lot of ice cream.
Huh? But $7 trillion given to Joe Biden?
Let's take this into the time of the year. Let's make it seasonal for a second. So this money printing kills jobs. It sends factories overseas, causes the cost of living to go up. No one can afford to live. Causes real estate and the market to go up. And if you're a part of that, great. There's a little offset from your paying at the pump and at the grocery store. So a few years ago, I was going to have a big Thanksgiving. I make everything. I make all this stuff. I love it. And I thought, this year I'm going to have some great silverware. So I went to all the high-end stores. I was in California at the time. I went to an extraordinarily expensive part of town. Everything in California is expensive. So I went to a very expensive part of town, figured, I'll buy the best. I turn over every fork in all these different stores I go to, and it says made in China.
Yes.
So I did some research. I looked everywhere. I spent hours Googling and Googling and Googling. And I found one company, Larry Kudlow, that makes silverware in America. It's called Liberty Tabletop. They're out of Sherrill, New York. And that silverware is made by Americans in America. And to me, it's the only company in America that makes silverware here in this country. And I thought, I don't really feel great about putting silverware in my mouth that was made in China.
Got a point. Anyway, I still think people should be diversified and own some of these metals. Paul Stone's the CEO of Colonial Metals Group. freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908. See you next week, I hope, down in South Florida. Folks, I'm Kudlow.
Absolutely.
We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to do some money politics right after that.